Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media Production, Snare Spotlight Day, featuring, I don't even know where to start with this, but it's outrageous. It is a cast bronze snare from Offbeat Drum Co. If you've been with us for any amount of time, you've probably noticed that we've played a lot of snare drums. We have opinions about snare drums. We have both, Ben and I, played cast snare drums before. This is another animal. We're going to geek out a lot about this drum today, but for starters, I just want to say up front, this is the best cast drum I have ever played, and it's fair to say I've played a lot of them. As with all of our Snare Spotlight videos, we are using the heads and wires that came on the drum when it arrived. Today it happens to be my favorite setup, which is coated G12 batter, 300 snare side, and Pure Sound Custom Pro Steels, 20 strand. This is a 3mm cast bronze shell. We have cast bronze hoops. It is 8 lugs, 14-inch diameter, 6.5 inches deep, and makes one of the biggest sounds out of a metal drum we've ever heard here at every tuning that we tried. Let's hear this drum a little bit at what we consider to be a medium tuning for this type of instrument. Now, it is doubly important for us to mention right now, especially with this drum, that there is no EQ, there's no compression, there's no production of any kind going on here. This is dry drum sounds, which I couldn't believe when we listened back to it, because for me, I've had drums like this described as I was coming up as being a really pure kind of sound that has all the tones and funny business scooped out of it automatically that you don't want, leaving you with the overtones you love, the body that you want, and almost like a just rock snare in a box. A couple of interesting things to note about this. This also features indie hardware in terms of the strainer and the butt plate, and proprietary lugs that were designed by Offbeat Drum Co. feature on this drum. This is the first of these that we've seen. They're super cool. They blend in nicely, nice low profile, and they show off the shell really nicely. The other thing that is special about this cast drum, which I have not personally seen in another, is it is 8 lugs instead of 10. Now, 10 has become very standard for high-end drums over the last few decades. I like 8 lugs for most drums for a variety of reasons that are primarily feel-oriented and sound-oriented. At this day and age, they can make a drum that will get a huge tuning range with only 8 lugs. You don't need 10 on there, and I feel that with a metal drum especially, 8 will open it up more. And looking at a cast 8 lug drum, I was hoping it would do the thing that I wanted, and it did it better than I could possibly have imagined. Now, let's utilize that lug count a little bit and tune it down into the gutter, get a fatter, warmer, boomier, overtone crazy kind of sound. Very sustainy, very open, very resonant, a lot of overtones. This is the sound of a lower tuned, wide open drum that is ridiculously resonant. I mean, it's it's bell bronze and bell bronze for days. So it's gonna sing. The great thing about this is if you want a big wide open sound, you can't get bigger than this. And if you want to lower it down a little bit of muffling goes a long way. There's a lot that we can utilize here and control if we want to, but having all of that fundamental underneath means that we can do a lot with this. There's a lot to manipulate, and we're still gonna have all that body no matter what we do. It's also worth noting that when you get to this level of resonance, if you start to experience a pitch or a tone that is overwhelming and prevalent, you can tune that right out. Again, there's no muffling here at all. We're just experimenting with maybe tuning the batter up a little bit and the snare side down, which oftentimes people consider to be the opposite of what is right to do. Never be afraid to experiment because there's a lot of wiggle room in there. Throw the rules out and see what works. Now, swinging in the other direction, especially with die-cast hoops, or in this case, bell bronze hoops, we want to take this up into the stratosphere and see, frankly, if we can choke it out. Now, this is where we actually started laughing when we were trying to shoot this. We couldn't choke it out. We just kept going up and up and up and up and up, and it had body the whole time. It had crack the whole time. The overtones evened out the whole time. It's insane. These three sounds, if you really bet me, I would not say that they were the same drum. I certainly wouldn't say the same drum with the same heads and the same wires and no muffling. I mean, I would have bet against that if you just showed me the recorded audio. It's important to note that we didn't have to fuss for any of these. It was really, really easy. And we own fussy drums. We've had fussy drums in here many times. We're struggling for words for some of the ways to describe this. But the thing that is particularly pronounced about an instrument like this is that when you have this kind of tuning range, this kind of clarity, this kind of articulation, and such a difference in character through the tuning range, you start to really get to say things like an unbelievably versatile instrument. Additionally, this drum is so loud that as we tuned it up higher and higher, we kept having to change the levels on the mics because it was getting even louder as we tuned it up and started to really get that shell to speak. This means for us that on the one hand, at lower tunings, it's quite polite and easy to work with, and you can do a lot of swampy stuff and pocket grooves with it. And on the other hand, if you want this to be your absolute gunshot kind of sound, you're not going to have to hit as hard as maybe you used to because the drum is giving you back so much, even with just our normal kind of 5A, 5B sort of sticks. We also want to mention that with a drum like this that maybe on first sight you think of as backbeats, loud, fast fills, rim shots, the sensitivity to the edge, especially at the higher tunings, is bordering on orchestral level with, again, this same setup. We're not messing with anything. It's the same heads and wires the whole time. We're just changing the tuning, not changing sticks or anything. This plays to the edge for rolls, open and closed, in a way that some people look for a drum that will just do that effectively. And this one does that too, which is, yeah, it's outrageous. It's really, really something else. Now, this is an extremely versatile drum from an extremely versatile drum builder. Offbeat Drum Co. has given us drums to check out a couple of times before, and they are different animals than this one. We've had copper with wood edges in here. We've had a few different things. These are handmade in Michigan, Jordan is an engineer. He is meticulous. The edges are crafted to the absolute nth degree. The snare beds, everything is immaculate. The fit and finish is beyond anything you could possibly ask for. And he is also an artist with metal. If you see this and you say, this is clean, this is pristine, this is a really beautiful instrument, he does a lot of other things with caustic chemicals and finishes and things like that that are absolutely a sight to behold. In addition to etching and laser stuff, it's outrageous. And you definitely need to see the other things that he has to offer and see if one of the things he's making is right for you. Now for the ultra super nerdy bits about exactly what we're looking at here in terms of the construction of a drum like this. Number one, we're talking about a cast shell. In this case, it is gravity cast. So a mold is made and then the molten metal is poured into that mold. It is fed down by gravity and then polished into shape and made pretty afterward. The hoops are a slightly different alloy and they are cast centrifugally, which is a more effective way of removing air bubbles and impurities and things like that, making a much more rigid and strong structure that's super effective for the hoops. This is particularly important because while the shell is making a lot of the sound and working with the heads, you're hitting the hoops. So we need these hoops to be as strong as possible. And as a person who has broken a bell brass hoop or bell bronze or whatever we want to call it, strong hoops make me feel a lot safer hitting something as nice as this. For a shell like this, I've seen a few different edges, mainly sharp 45s. In this case, he chose to do a rounded over, and I think that this contributes to how much body this drum has and gets a little less of the really severe brittle part of the crack out of it, giving us a little more versatile drum and also one that handles low tunings better. All of these factors come together, especially in the mind of an engineer as Offbeat Drum Co. is, into a drum that can do a lot of things. It can fill a lot of spaces, and most importantly, it'll do what you want a cast drum to do, which is very high volume, very good articulation, very good body in this case as well, and an extremely wide tuning range, which means that as long as you're going for something loud, this is going to do it. Thanks for checking out this drum with us today. Please follow the link below to see this and everything else that Jordan at Offbeat Drum Co. is doing. There's a lot to check out there, especially over on the Instagram. Lots of process and production photos and things like that, which I definitely find super fascinating. And if you're interested in getting one of your own, you can contact him directly about pricing and options and all of that stuff. And I'm just going to go ahead and play this drum some more.